Hey everyone, it's Jordan Kurt again. This is my second installment of my consolidated, re-edited videos, giving you a walkthrough of the Native American stone structures in Megaliths in New Hampshire. This slide is going to focus on sort of filling in some of the blanks. I didn't get into the details on the speculative structures in the first video because I think you need an education on the basic structures first in order to see these second ones. So if you're new to the channel and you're watching this video now, I'd highly recommend you watch my first 25-minute video because I don't think this will make a lot of sense if you haven't seen what I put up before. So I've been reviewing some more of Doug Harris's talks, an Algonquin former deputy tribal historian who seems very knowledgeable on the subject matter. Also Mary and I believe Jane Gage, who are two European non-Native American scholars in the subject, and I'll probably be citing them through this video, just describing what some of these structures were used for. So with that being said, in this first slide, below my feet you see a small cave, a little chamber. It seems these were used as sort of portals where offerings would be put, something like a pinch of tobacco or food for a spirit in the area. And behind my body, behind my chest, you see a large boulder, which unfortunately I did not photograph the back of, but I believe that represents the salamander effigy. So in keeping with what I like doing to explain these areas, you see two different features, an effigy and a portal together. So these larger and smaller structures also often correspond, which I believe shows that these are not random, but rather ceremonial landscapes. These are two more salamander effigies. You can see a distinctive head and body, their bodies being somewhat similar with large cut blocks. Next up, you see, okay, so in my next slide, I'm going to show you a picture. I included a picture of only the structure without me standing there for size comparison in the last slideshow, and I didn't go into much depth of the details I saw. It does look a bit at first view to be a random pile of rubble, but I think roughly from here with me in the picture and after you've seen the first video, you can see that this is similar to other what I call salamander effigies. But to show more detail in the image, I want to zoom into what we could call the neck vertebrae, where the body reaches the head through the neck. I'm taking a picture, which I'll show you in the next slide, a close-up of the vertebrae in the neck. And these stones, while rough, also I think you could make the argument look like they have been sort of sanded down to fit together closely. It looks like there was some planning and thought going into the placement of these stones. So this next picture is, this next picture is what I consider to be one of the top 3 to 5 finds I found in the area because of the merging of commonly accepted structures like walls with sort of appearingly well-engineered large structures like this boulder I'm sitting behind. What I was talking before is the correspondence of numerous features together. So we have a wall, we have a large, what I believe to be megalith, and directly behind this megalith, in an area I'm excited to explore more soon because it was so tightly packed with such structures and correspondences, is that balancing boulder I mentioned in the last video. So in the last video I did mention that this balancing boulder was near a large megalith, which I just showed you. Here it is. Here's the wedge it's balanced on another view. But another corresponding piece I didn't mention before was that it's near 2 stone piles, one with 1 stone, which appears to be of a similar composition as the base boulder to your left, and then to your, now I'm getting mixed up because I'm looking at my reflection in the slideshow, but anyway, the other picture on the bottom right of the screen, you see a boulder stacked with very flaky soft stones, which I'd actually be interested to get a sample of because they appear like granite, but I do believe they were very, very soft. and so I'd be interested in seeing what kind of stone this was. So I had mentioned this area that had a large number of very speculative features. Very few widely accepted features, but very many speculative features. And one of the commonalities between the large structures in this area are ovals on top of the structures, or in this case an effigy, an eagle or hawk effigy. Totally speculative. I don't know what this would represent to Native Americans, but I do believe it is animalistic. There's another one of a very similar shape directly behind it. But anyway, take note of the oval on top. This is the snake effigy or rattlesnake effigy I had mentioned in the last video, and I had neglected to mention that it also has an oval, which you can see to my left in this picture. And the balanced oval nearby, it also has an oval on top, and then I remembered another oval, the salamander effigy to the left of that melted oval. See, again, if you haven't watched my first video, you're not going to know what the heck I'm talking about, so please do that. If you're thinking I'm crazy, take a look at the last video. These things lead up into each other. So anyway, there's that salamander from the front. You can barely see the oval. Oh, you can fully see the oval poking out of its back. And here it is, and here's that salamander I opened the video with. Here are two other salamanders. So again, there's 4 salamanders here from the side, and from the back, there's that oval I mentioned. To the left in the forest, we have another balancing oval, the one that I said looked melted over its base stones. And notice the oval has a flat face. It's somewhat flush with the slanted slope beneath it. Here's a close-up of that oval. But these ovals are often perched over these similarly slanted slopes, staircases, pyramidal walls. I call them, not because I think they're pyramids, but because they're pyramidal. Here's the same phenomenon from the left. So there's all these, and there's that balanced melted oval. Here's what's on the right of it. The whole, acre is surrounded by these similarly sloped, I believe to be granite walls. Here's a composition of examples from the area. Top left, you see that megalith, which I think is out of all my hundreds of photographs, whenever I'm trying to get people to take interest in the area, I show them that one because I think that's the most impressive. But those walls beneath the oval, you can see in multiple pictures. It's not uncommon to see these seemingly cut mountainsides, which I would posit were cut or manipulated in some way. The picture on the far right, you can see sort of a round block of rock poking out. I didn't get a picture of that up close, but that's one of the things I'm most interested in looking at, because I recall as I was passing by it, I noticed some rocks behind it, and I'm quite sure this would be a good example of a whale effigy. This was that turtle effigy I mentioned, potentially carved into the side of a cliff with a crystalline granite insert. I showed multiple examples of other crystalline granite inserts and animal effigies in my last video. But again, you see pyramidal sides on the left and on the right. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm just drawing your attention to patterns amongst the super speculative megaliths and effigies in the area to show that while I call them speculative, I'm really only doing so to give the benefit of the doubt to people new to this material, because again, I've been exposed to this this landscape. I've been documenting it. I documented it for about 2 years, spent 5 years afterwards studying my photographs. So I'm aware that there's a knowledge gap, and this can sound random if you haven't been through this stuff before. So with that being said, I'm going to continue with a few more items on a mountain peak, and these are very small mountains, smaller than Pac Monadnock in New Hampshire. So look that up, look up the height. These are smaller than that, but again, on the peak, I found this very interesting triangle. Here it is from the front, and just the level of geometry here and the fact that it is on the mountain peak led me to believe that this was certainly planned and not random. So this is the head of a serpent effigy. As I said, over the past 24 hours, I watched as much of Doug Harris's talks and lectures as I could, and he mentioned there being serpent effigies in the area which had red paint in their neck, and some item symbolizing a star from some constellation I can't remember the name of. But again, on the left, you can see a nice curved, scooped out piece of that serpent's head, and you can see tinges of orange on the stone. And if we zoom into the neck, you can see what I definitely think to be paint, some kind of ochre, and a stone in its vertebrae, right where Doug Harris said it would be. This looks very crystalline. I believe I squeezed it, I touched it, and it was quite soft, so I do know where this is. It might take a day or two to find it again, but it is not too far from an accessible road, so I'd love to show this to somebody. And this is another serpent effigy as I was going through my notes on the speculative areas again. Serpentine head on the left, and sort of a corresponding non-random feature. You have that triangle to the right of it. So again, I don't buy that this is a wall, but rather a serpent effigy. I had mentioned this balanced boulder in my first video, tying its the small block. It was the geometry of the small block it's balancing on to that of the balancing boulder I showed near the oval megalith earlier in this video. And what's interesting about this balanced boulder is it's actually in a row of very similarly sized giant boulders. This was actually taken on my very first expedition in the area. I had rented a U-Haul van and stayed at a campsite overnight, and it was pouring rain, and I just set off into the woods with a compass looking for, confirmation points being walls, but this is one of the things I found, and this would be difficult to find again, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of the boulders in this row were in fact balanced. Here's another picture of that triangle from the front, and from the side. And here's another triangle tipped over on that same mountaintop. So I think it's funny that there's two large granite, very geometric triangles on this mountaintop that's surrounded with megaliths and serpentine walls, potential burial mounds, effigies, cairns, and the like. So anyway, this was sort of a fill in the blanks. I went through my database of photographs again and just tried to get out everything that I felt could help fill in blanks from the last video, assuming you have watched the first video. So if you haven't, definitely do, and then come back to this, and I think it will make a lot of sense and sort of give you a big picture view of the area and realization as to why I'm so interested in the area. Thank you.